This is the speaker. Because I place the microphone over here and that came out.
Pick him out.
Is that the only one that you have? Yeah.
Heavenly Father, we come before you today in humility and faith. We thank you for all you have given us and the many blessings in our lives. We ask for your guidance and strength during this evening's public safety town hall. Show us the way and fill us with courage. We pray for our government leaders. Fill them with your spirit so they can guide and protect our communities with peace and justice. Show them the way and fill them with wisdom so they can be faithful servants to you and to the communities they serve. We also remember the terrible tragedy of 9/11 that changed our lives here in our country and in our world. We pray that we may always embrace and live the virtues of peace and love in all our encounters and endeavors. And finally, we ask you to give us the patience, understanding to face life's challenges and struggles with respect, understanding, and with grace. We ask this through Christ, our Lord. Amen. The Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. God bless you.
Thank you, and thank you again for all of the support that you've given us. And Speakers of the English community has been very helpful and instrumental in putting this together. So I'll start off by introductions, and then I'd like to observe a moment of silence, again, because we know that this is September 11th. And so to my left, to your right, is Chief McManus, who needs no introduction, but for him. budget issue. We have a budget that we're approving on Thursday, and she is a critical part of that budget. So, so she kindly asked to excuse herself, but she knew that we would be good as long as we had our chief and our DA here today. So we will send well wishes on healthy budget discussions to Maria, and hopefully she can find District 4 more money. I'm just kidding, I had to say that. But I appreciate everybody for being here. Just a reminder, we picked this specifically, this place, because it is a place where we come to worship. A lot of times we come for reconciliation, and it takes a lot of that acknowledgement before moving forward with some of these really important conversations. And that's exactly what today is intended to do. It should be a conversation. We will start off by some level setting. We will start off with some educational questions so that folks know exactly what happens, what doesn't happen. We're going to hear some trends, national trends, local trends, and in district-specific even areas of concern. After that, and we'll do a question and answer panel. We'll hear from some of our state officers. We'll also hear from our mental health unit as well, or we'll get to answer some workers to learn about that as well. Those are the critical pieces of today. And then the most important part that I know that you all wanted to be here, which is a question and answers. So you will have an opportunity to ask questions, and we will respond to your questions with as much information as we have possible or available at the moment. I also want to acknowledge that we have representatives from the mayor's office today, and from Mayor Ehrenberg's team, and from Judge Sakai's team here. The mayor has committed to take everything that you all say in the Q&A session and use it as a baseline for the conversations that he and the judge will be having to find the real solutions. So again, today is more of an approach as tell us how you feel. Tell us what you're feeling as you see things going on in your district, in your neighborhoods, etc. And so with that in mind, I want to just encourage you to start thinking of these questions. You might hear some answer already as they start talking, as I start asking the questions, but please feel free to start jotting down your questions, and then we'll have a microphone that is available for questions. So with that said, I'm going to start off with Chief McManus. And Chief, I'm going to take this off and sit next to you all and host this as more of a panel conversation. And so Chief, can you tell us a little bit, I know there's some concern about staffing levels. So tell me a little bit about the SAPD staffing levels, and maybe a little bit about the different divisions that you oversee.
Thank you, Councilmember. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us here tonight. So, staffing levels. We have been talking about SAPD staffing levels, whether they're appropriate or not, for years. We go to community meetings, and we always hear we don't see enough police. We need to see more police visible. We need to see them patrolling our neighborhood. And inevitably, I hear that in every area of the city. So, last October, we commissioned a study, a staffing study. We were supposed to have that completed in the spring. Unfortunately, the gentleman who was doing it only got it halfway done before he passed away. So we got the patrol side of it done, and the recommendation was for 360 new patrol officers, 360 new positions. So we are asking for 105 of those positions in the upcoming budget. The 5 additional, the 100 will go to patrol. And the idea behind that is to make the ratio of on-call time lower than the ratio of off-call. And what I mean by that is, right now, officers spend 60% of their time going from call to call to call. And they spend 40% of their time doing other things, direct control, making traffic stops, that sort of thing. Working with HOAs, NAs. What we want to do is we want to flip that ratio. We want to make it 60% discretionary time, or time that officers can work with the community groups, NAs, HOAs, work with direct control. You have a traffic problem in your neighborhood, it gives the officer time to do that, and 40% on-call time. And what that will do also, with theoretically, that we be bringing in. So right now, we have 1,673 officers in control alone, 1,673. Traffic and emergency services, 232. Investigations, 255. Fusion and covert, 162. And the number under my office is 205. That includes the academy, that includes internal affairs, and a few other areas. The second half of this study should be done before the end of September, and they'll let us know how many new investigators we should have. And then we will be working on that going down the road as well.
And Chief, before you sit down, the square mileage that of the coverage of each of the substations approximately.
Sure, I've got to refer to my notes for this because I don't know how to remember this.
And while Chief does that, Chief talked about the impact of the additional patrol officers if they're approved on Thursday, which I would be going to agree with that. Our team, our entire council will have a vote on Thursday, which is why I said that Adriana Rocha is working on that right now. But thank you, Chief, for addressing what that would hold. Go ahead.
So right now, everybody know how many substations we have? We have 6. We have south, north, crew, west, east, and central. Anybody guess what the biggest one is? West. What is it? South. South has 131.7 square miles. North is the next largest with 100.7 square miles. Then Peru with 93.5, West with 78.9, East with 68.1, and coming in dead last is Central with 25.8. And the average of all those, in the math last night, 83 miles average.
Thank you, Chief. And then also, I know that you were going to talk to us a little bit about trends, and let's talk about property crime and violent crime, and we see the trends. They're up, but they're not just in San Antonio, are they? Or what do you see happening across the country, and how do you see us compared to other national trends?
So what we see here in San Antonio, you can kind of gauge that to what's happening around the country, with some exceptions. Our property crimes are up. And they're up because of theft, but primarily what's driving that number is vehicle theft. People steal cars to steal other cars. People make a living out of stealing cars. They don't just wake up one morning and decide, I think I'll go out and I'll steal a car. They do it all. There was an arrest that we made, and the individual who was arrested acknowledged that he was stealing about 18 cars a day. And what they do is, the ones who do this for a living, they take them to chop shops and they sell them. Or they sell them to a group of individuals who are changing the tags, changing the VIN, and then selling them. But it's a huge, huge operation here, not only in San Antonio, but across the country. And people do robberies for a living too. People go out there and you don't wake up in the room and decide to rob somebody and then stop doing it. People go on robbing sprees and they rob all day long into the night. We've arrested serial robbers who have admitted multiple robberies in a day. I mean multiple robberies in a day. Now here's the thing that you may not believe or seem kind of odd based on what we've been talking about. Our violent crime numbers through July are down 14%. Now, you may have heard about the violent crime reduction plan that we are doing in conjunction with UTSA. Started that back in January. We've seen a pretty dramatic reduction in violent crime over the last 8 months. The 6-month report is almost finished, and I got an email message from the head of the criminology department over at UTSA, who wrote this plan along with his team. And he said he's got really, really good news for us for the last 6 months report. I haven't received that report yet, but I'm expecting to see a pretty big drop in the violent crime that we've been experiencing. So that's the good news.
Thank you, Chief. And I've been telling people that it's time that we take back our neighborhoods. There's a lot more of us than there is of them. And I'm talking about people that are engaged
exceptions to what I'm about to tell you. Don't misunderstand me, think that this is 100%. But most of the violent crime in this city is due to risky behavior. And oftentimes, the victim knows the assailant, knows the perpetrator, knows the actor. Again, there are exceptions to that. I said that in one meeting, the guy jumped up on my thought we were going to run up and beat me up because he knew somebody that got robbed and it wasn't risky behavior. But the motive that we most see for violent crime, or I'm sorry, for aggravated assaults, are altercations, arguments. People get into arguments and somebody's going to pull out a gun and shoot the other person. We've got boyfriends shooting, ex-boyfriends shooting new boyfriends. We've got ex-girlfriends shooting new boyfriends. We've got sons shooting fathers, fathers shooting sons. People drunk at parties shooting each other. People out in the parking lots after the bars close shooting each other. People in the bars fighting. Somebody will run out to the car, get a weapon, try and get back in the bar. If they can't get way out of the parking lot, they get them and they come out. This goes on over and over and over again. It's the first thing I do when I wake up at 5:30 in the morning is read crime reports for the last 24 hours. And it is absolutely astounding. It's astounding some of the things that you read, why people are being assaulted, why people are being shot. Road rage, domestic. People who are getting hard fouled at a basketball game at the playground are running back to their gym bag and pulling out a gun and shooting the guy that's fouling. This is going on all over the city. And if you, I wouldn't believe it if I didn't read it every day. But that's what's happening. You've got risky behavior, you've got altercations that are driving a lot of crime in this city, a lot of violent crime in the city.
Chief, I'm going to talk a little bit about safe officers because I think that they're a good bridge for residents to help you all. Tell me a little bit about the safe officers across the city. How many do you have? Do you anticipate us getting some additional safe officers?
Sure. So everybody knows what the safe officer program is. Safe officers are beloved throughout the city. Matter of fact, before I go on, there's a safe sergeant around here somewhere. There he is. Mike Ross. Let me go around the room real quick. To his left, standing over there in the uniform, Chris Benavides. Chris is Deputy Chief over Patrol. Next in line is Lieutenant Michelle Ramos. She works in my office. We're Frank Picasso in the suit there, the suit. Right and left-hand person. Deputy Chief Jesse Soloway next to him. Danny Diaz next to Jesse, SAPOA President. Jim Smith over there, another SAPOA guy. One around the room, there's somebody else back here. Where is it? How many from me? Where are you? Right here, sir. That's the guy I was texting while I was sitting there. I'm the Deputy Chief over at the Special Operations Unit, which includes SWAT. And, so there are all the folks that are here tonight to answer any questions that we might have that I may not have the answer to. So safe officers. So there's about 125 of them. Maybe one or two of them. About 125 of them at different stations throughout the different substations through the city. Each substation, there's a couple. They're not all evenly staffed. There's just a couple off. But for the most part, they all have about the same number. Your safe officers will resolve neighborhood problems that may not necessarily be handled by a 911 call or a call to the non-emergency line. They work with NAs. They work with neighborhood associations, homeowners associations.
Certainly, but first, let me tell you, I'm honored to be here. I do want to acknowledge somebody in the audience that is a state representative that's been doing really hard work for the citizens in her area. Representative Josie Garcia, thank you so much for coming down. Let me just say this, folks. I know a lot of you are frustrated with what is happening in the last couple of weeks. I'm frustrated also. I want our community to be safe. I'm over 60 years old. I am from San Antonio. I've lived here all my life. As a matter of fact, in the middle of my high school years, we moved over here and I graduated from John Jay down the street. So I'm from here. I'm going to do everything I can to ensure the safety of this community. But a lot of what goes on, people don't understand the role of the district attorney's office. We handle 50,000 cases a year. We have 500 prosecutors. 500 employees, half of whom are prosecutors, and each of them have a caseload of about 300 or so. The court prosecutors handle about 300 cases. The intake prosecutors handle about that much. Our misdemeanor prosecutors handle about 150 to 200. Every day, all day long, they go to court to try and bring justice to victims of crime. But it's not always an easy task because we as lawyers are obligated to prove these cases beyond a reasonable doubt. So it's not enough to have a person that's been arrested. We have to have proof. We have to have witnesses. We have to have victims come to court. We have to be able to go to court and prove that if we say a crime was committed, that we have to be able to prove it. There are a lot of challenges to that, Councilwoman, but that's the general overview. By the way, you asked about the divisions. We have 13 different divisions in our office. We're the largest public law firm in town. We're the third largest DA's office in Texas. The divisions that are important to this community are the intake division that makes decisions about accepting or rejecting cases. Our criminal trial division handles the felonies, and of course our misdemeanor division handles the misdemeanor cases, including family violence. So it's a daunting task, but the reason our people do it, they're not doing it to get rich. They're doing it because they believe in what they're doing. They believe in public safety, and I'm proud to lead a group of 500 employees in the DA's office.
Thank you, DA. Violent crime is said to be committed by a small percentage of the population, like I asked Chief McManus. And how is this reflected in the number of repeat offenders that we have?
Well, I will say, first of all, let me echo what the chief said. I do agree that a lot of what we see is risky behavior. It's people that are engaged in activity that they shouldn't. And so we see a lot of that. We do see repeat offenders, but it's a small percentage, less than half of the cases that we have in our office. And when we have cases where someone has actually gone to prison, we have the ability to indict that individual with a repeat offense enhancement that increases the punishment. Someone that has gone to prison twice can become a habitual offender, and the minimum punishment then is from 25 to life. There's a common understanding of what a repeat offender is, and then there's the legal definition of being able to prove somebody is a repeat offender. And any time that we can do that, we have, and we will, and we have done that. But again, we've got to be able to have that kind of information to enhance the punishment. But before we get to the point of punishing somebody as a repeat offender or a habitual offender, we've got to get past the guilt innocence. We've got to be able to prove somebody committed a crime, and that's always a challenge in our office.
Thank you, DA. Of the reported crimes that do make it to your office, what percentage of those cases go before a judge and result in maybe some pretrial diversion or even dismiss?
Well, somebody asked me that question today, and so we took a look at the numbers from January to now. About 60% of the cases that we can prove end up being prosecuted that result in either probation or prison time. Obviously, we're asking for prison if the facts merit incarceration. When somebody is indicted with a felony, they have the ability to choose who they're going to be punished by, either a judge or a jury. So if we go to trial and get a conviction, they can go to the judge, and the judge can assess the punishment, or they can ask the jury to do that. But what we're seeing is if when we can prove the case, we offer pretrial diversion on low-level, non-violent offenses. And if the person successfully completes the diversion, then we can move to dismiss the cases. That's been a huge success in terms of recidivism, or the propensity to reoffend. We know that when somebody has a case filed in court, they recidivate or repeat at the rate of 38%, but when they are asked to participate in a program like Sign Release, then the recidivism rate is at only 7 to 8%. But again, we don't offer pretrial diversion on violent offenses. We don't offer to somebody who's a repeat offender. Those are just low-level, non-violent offenses, which again is a misunderstanding in the community about how we use pretrial diversion.
Thank you, DA. Can you talk about some maybe trends that you're seeing with incarcerated individuals?
Well, first, and let me apologize. I'm dealing with some allergies, and so my voice is not what it usually is. I will tell you that we are seeing trends in crime, and the chief mentioned that violent crime is down in San Antonio. I think that's because of the collaboration of law enforcement, the police department, the sheriff's department, the DA's office, and the courts. But we are still seeing crime occurring in our community. And folks, part of that is because guns are so accessible. And we saw a difference. We saw an uptick when we started seeing the law passed that allowed for open carry. The problem is that everybody that has a gun has a potential to engage in road rage, engage in an argument at the local gas station, engage in an argument at the local grocery store. And so we are seeing people engaging in instances and acts of violence involving firearms.
Thank you, DA. I'm going to go back to Chief McManus now, and I want to talk a little bit about the SA4 mental health unit. And so, can you give us a general overview of the program for those who are not as familiar with it? And just anything that you need that, or that you think that the community might need as they hear us talking about mental health?
So, how many have not heard about SA Core? SA Core?
SA Core.
So SA Core, and I don't know what it stands for, San Antonio or something. But it is a unit that responds to mental health calls. And that unit consists of an SAPD mental health officer. It consists of a clinician, a mental health clinician, and it consists of a paramedic, EMT from the fire department. So you've got a team of 3, and they respond to mental health calls. I want to say 74%, I'm doing this off my memory, so 74% of those calls, since they, let me look at my notes, I'm not giving you bad information. So, 74% of those calls from October 1, 2022 to August 31, 2023, year to date, 1,243 responses to mental health calls. 915 of those calls resulted in direct contact with the individual who was in crisis. 266, or 21%, of those calls resulted in no contact. They were able to resolve that by talking on the phone or talking with a family member, and no contact with the actual person who's having a crisis. And the last one, 5%, or 62 calls, were indirect contact, which means that we resolved it over the phone. And then you have our mental health unit. So we have one of those teams working right now. In January, we will put 2 more of those teams together to provide a greater blanket of coverage across the city and during the hours of the day. So we started back in 2008, I believe it was, a mental health unit. 2 officers, 1 supervisor. They work out of our fusion center. Now, they work from 7 in the morning till 3 o'clock in the morning. No, wait, I'm lying. It's 7 o'clock till 11 at night. From 11 at night till 7 o'clock the next morning, we have an on-call team. SA Core works till 3 in the morning. And they start up again at 7. But we have 24 hours a day, 7 days a week covered with a mental health response. And again, we will continue to expand that and grow as the city grows and as the number of officers in the department grows.
And Chief, how can community members request the help of a mental health unit?
So if you're having an issue with a family member or a neighbor or whomever that's having a mental health crisis, you can dial, if it's an emergency, you dial 911, and the dispatcher, you can tell the dispatcher what you need. If it's not an emergency, but you just have someone who's got some mental health issues and you want to call, you call a non-emergency number. And that will, if there's a mental health officer available, then that mental health officer will respond. Or if an SA Core team is available, the SA Core unit will respond.
Thank you, Chief. I'll go back to the DA now. DA, I was wondering, for those of us who are not involved in criminal activity, how do bail bonds work?
Let me explain to you that when an individual is arrested by law enforcement, let's say SAPD makes a decision to arrest somebody, that person is brought to the magistrate's office and is brought before a magistrate judge. The magistrate judge has 3 roles. Number 1, review the offense report to determine if there's probable cause to hold that individual. The magistrate judge also has to inform the accused or the prisoner, we say, of his constitutional rights. Everybody has heard that on TV. You have the right to remain silent, you have the right to an attorney, and so forth. The third and most important thing the magistrate judge does is set bonds. There is a common misconception out there that if somebody is released, especially if they're released immediately, it's because of the DA's office, or it's because of the DA himself that we release that individual. When the reality is the magistrate judges are the ones that set the bonds. Now, we can recommend bonds, and we often do. As a matter of fact, I was looking on my phone a little while ago about the last 50 recommendations that were brought to my attention, and usually it's 2 or 3 in the morning. The intake division chief calls me and says, "We have this case come in. This is what we think. What do you think?" We err on the side of recommending a higher bond when it's someone that is accused of committing violence. On the average, on these cases that again span about a 4-month period, 50 bond recommendations, the average bond for a murder is $150,000. The average bond for an aggravated robbery is between $75,000 to $100,000. The average bond for an aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, again, is about $100,000. So we are recommending stout bonds to the magistrate judge. However, just because we recommend a $150,000 murder case doesn't mean that that's where the bond is going to stay. The magistrate judge has the discretion to set the bond wherever he or she does. Often they don't even ask us for our recommendation. That's how it works. And the reality is our bond system is not risk-based. If it were risk-based, a magistrate judge would look at the crime and determine you're not going to bond out because there's too much of a risk to the community. What we have in Texas, folks, is a cash-based system. That means somebody who is charged with murder and the bond is set at $150,000, like I just said, if he's got 10% or $15,000 in his bank, he's going to walk out the front door. Or if he hires a bondman that can push the bond at 10%, he's going to walk out the door. We know there are bond companies that will bond somebody up for 3%. So if you've got the ability, even if you are charged with a violent offense, you can be released out on bond. That's the system that we have in Texas. The law states, the Constitution states, everyone except those that are charged with capital murder are entitled to a bond. That's the reality that we have to work at. Now, what we do is if the person is going to get out, and we believe that there's a chance he's going to bond out, we can ask that that person have a GPS, the leg monitor. We can ask the judge to impose conditions on that individual. But again, and this is why this is important, because the narrative out there has been that it's because of the DE's lax bond policy that a certain individual is out, like the ones that committed these shootings in the last couple of weeks. Folks, I do not have a bond policy on felonies. I have directed from the very beginning to allow my felony prosecutors to use their best judgment. I'll say it again, I have never ever recommended that any of my felony prosecutors set low bonds on felonies. The only bond policy I've ever had to do with the homeless on low-level, non-violent offenses, because 2 people died in jail because they couldn't afford to get out on a $500 bond. I bet most of you here have $50 in your pocket or have access to $50. Those 2 people couldn't get out and they died in jail. That's the only bond policy I have ever had as the elected DA. But I'm never going to do anything that's going to compromise the safety of the community. And so that's how it works. It's the magistrate judge that sets a bond, and they are obligated and required by the Constitution to set bonds.
Thank you, DA. And you mentioned homelessness. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. But Chief McManus has an answer to the SA core question that we asked earlier. We asked about what the difference is between core and the mental health unit, but he wants to do the definition of core.
So my lifeline sitting around the room here quickly sent me a text. SA4 stands for Community Outreach and Resiliency Efforts. And one other clarification I want to make. So SA Core, the hours are 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. Mental health unit from 7 a.m. to 3 a.m. And then the on-call mental health team works from 3 a.m. to 7 a.m. And that is 7 days a week.
Thank you, Chief. And then I'd also like to recognize, I was told that Rogelio Narvaez, our D4 homelessness outreach coordinator, would be here tonight. I don't know if, oh, there you are, you're ready for me. Thank you so much. Thank you for all you do, Rogelio. We, by the way, will be inviting everyone to participate on a town hall on homelessness scheduled same time, 6 to 8 p.m. That's going to be on Monday, October the 16th at New Life Christian Center. We will have flyers for you, and I do want to recognize that Elder Peter Onofre is here, who has permission to work with us at New Life Christian Center to host us there. There's the theme here again, right? So the theme is that we stay in areas where we get to have very, very difficult conversations that hopefully come to solutions. So before I go on, Chief McManus mentioned something earlier that I know that it's on everybody's minds, and maybe you, DA, you haven't had the chance to address this, but gun violence, and we saw how open carry has given some additional means for people to obviously to have immediate access. Unfortunately, DA, can you tell me a little bit about what you're seeing, what kind of trends you're seeing with open carry?
Well, the biggest difference between open carry and the way the law used to be when I obtained my concealed handgun license years ago, in order for me to get my gun license, I had to take a class. I had to learn how to clean the gun. I had to learn how to shoot the gun. I had to learn the rules of the road, as they say. Today, you can go to any gun show and purchase a gun without proving that you have any training, without proving any proficiency in how to fire the weapon. What we are seeing is that people are having access to guns that really have no business carrying guns. People that have mental health issues, like the Chief just mentioned, people that have criminal histories, people that are in volatile relationships, who have victimized their significant other in domestic violence situations. All those people have access to guns. What we are seeing today, though, is the access to guns is increased exponentially because people are breaking into cars and taking guns. We all know that people carry guns when they travel from point A to point B. What happens a lot of times is if you, for example, are an individual that has a gun in your vehicle, you may forget to take the gun with you when you retire for the evening. You may forget to take it with you when you go to that hotel room and you leave it behind in the vehicle. People are looking to break into vehicles that have weapons. I heard today of an officer who has a gun safe, and his truck has been repeatedly broken into, and they compromised the safe and they've stolen his guns. So that's part of the reason that we're seeing an increase in guns, because people are breaking into vehicles to steal those guns. Now, let me tell you what I'm not doing. I'm not proposing or advocating to take guns away from law-abiding citizens. If you're a law-abiding citizen and you have every right to have a gun, you have every right to protect yourself with a weapon. Nobody should be asking you to take your weapon. I'm talking about the people that have no business carrying guns, the kind of people that the chief has to deal with, and the kind of people that we deal with. We need to figure out a better way to take hands out of people that don't have any business with guns.
And DA, along that line, how do you choose which unlawful carry cases you try?
The only time that we charge someone with an unlawful carrying of a weapon case is when it's in connection with another offense. For example, if they're dealing drugs, or they're committing aggravated assault with that weapon, or they're breaking into vehicles. So if there's another case along with the unlawfully carrying of a weapon, then we can have charge of it. But just because somebody pulls you over and an officer sees you with a weapon in your vehicle, you're not going to get charged. And I dare say the officers aren't going to arrest you either, because you have a right to carry. You have a right to have that weapon. There have been times since open carry that I have seen people out in public at a restaurant or in the grocery store with a sidearm and in a holster. They have a right to do that. So that's legal. So long as they're not doing anything to threaten anybody, so long as they're not pulling it out and pointing it at someone. And so, yes, we will do it when it's in connection to another crime they've committed.
And I know this is just a ballpark figure. What percentage of those unlawful carry are you seeing being dropped?
Being filed, I would say it's a pretty small percentage. If I were to give it a number, I would say probably less than 20%. Again, if we're going to charge somebody with a weapons offense, it's going to be because they're felon in possession of a weapon. That means they've gone to prison and they have no right to carry a weapon, or they're using their weapon in some way. They're exhibiting it, they're pointing it at somebody, they're using it in an argument, in a road rage. In that case, we're going to charge them with aggravated assault with deadly weapon, not just unlawfully carrying that weapon.
Got it. And DA, you mentioned something. You mentioned that sometimes you get calls at 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. Chief McManus called me. Unfortunately, every time there's an accident or something in deep work, he calls me at that time as well. So that means that he's working. He's calling me to letting me know about it. So I feel like we're 24/7, right? So even though our offices might say that they're closed at 5, we're working together 24/7. But tell me about when we do get that call, let's say at odd hours of the night. Who is it that's calling you, and how long do they have to? What if they don't get you? What are you asleep?
They will get to me, but this is the inmate chief. Her name is Emily Angulo, and I like to say that she's a vampire because she never sleeps. And she will call me out all hours of the night, and I will answer. Usually it's a text. But yes, those are cases where they, for whatever reason, we think it's a significant case because it involves a crime of violence, because there's some history that I need to be aware of. And again, as I mentioned, we err on the side of a higher than normal recommendation because we don't know what the magistrate's going to judge is going to do. We hope that they'll follow our recommendation, but there are times that they haven't.
And this is county, right?
This is county, and we are county prosecutors. The officers that make these arrests are city officers. They will bring the prisoner over to the Frio Street location, but then they get transported to the jail facility. magistrate office by the jail. And by the way, there's been a lot of media attention about the discord between the chief and I. I'm happy to report that we spoke today. I'm happy to report that we both believe that the only thing that we need to do that's going to work is to work together. So we're going to work together to better public safety.
Thank you today, and that just makes me so happy, and everybody, as you can tell. And this is why it's important to have these conversations. The DA loves the community, the chief loves the community, I love the community. This is where we live, this is where our kids live, this is where we want to eventually retire, right? And so it's important to have those critical conversations and have you all tell us what you're feeling. So in a little bit, we're going to go into a Q&A, so I want you to start getting your questions ready, definitely for that. Comment cards were also distributed, so I don't know who's collecting the comment cards, but I know that was in my notes. I do want to take the opportunity to acknowledge that I also work really closely with our school district police chiefs, and we have one in attendance today, and I do want to publicly recognize him, and that's Chief Richard Palomo from Southwest ISD. And I want to let you know that Chief Palomo also has my mobile number. He calls me regularly. He calls me sometimes before even somebody calls to say something. So he's always on top of it. So again, I just want to publicly acknowledge that we work with the school districts as well. I don't know if Northside ISD or Southside ISD is in the house, but if you are, thank you for all the work that you do. So we are moving along now, like I said, with the question and answer. I want to demonstrate, I have volunteered one of my staffers to demonstrate what we would like for you all to express right when you get the mic. And so we're gonna start with Edward Mukia to model one of the questions. So we ask that residents raise their hands, of course, and so our district staff will be coming around with the mic. But Edward will introduce himself first. Please let us know if you are from the city or what city council district you're from, and then ask your question. So, Edward, can you start us off? Give us an example.
Yes, thank you, Council. Again, my name is Edward. I'm a District 4 resident, and my question is for Chief McManus. Chief, a lot of people here probably have a question about car burglaries. What's the SAPD process once that call has been made to SAPD?
So you can actually take that, report you call in over the phone. But there are certain requirements that, if there's evidence present on the scene, if it's in progress, then we would have to go out and handle that call in person. But you can give that report over the phone. As a matter of fact, there's a whole bunch of reports that we can take over the phone for you. And I'm going to quickly read through them. There's like 19 or 20 of them, and I can stumble through them, but I can do it much quicker by reading them. So it's offenses that don't require an officer on the scene. The offense is not in progress. No known suspects, no witnesses. No need for any on-scene investigation. Yes, that's it. Offense that does not involve an allegation of sexual assault, an offense that does not exceed $30,000, theft and theft of service less than $30,000, burglary of vehicles, or of coin-operated machines less than $30,000, criminal mischief, harassing or threatening phone calls which do not involve threats of violence, lost property less than $30,000, miscellaneous information and additional information reports where an officer is not required on the scene, visitation violation of child custody, criminal mischief not in progress, theft, ID theft, forgery, and lastly, credit and debit card abuse less than $30,000. So you can take all of those reports over the phone, and you can get that information online too if you like. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you, Edward, for demonstrating the question. And we'll open it up now to the residents in the audience. And so, Edward has the microphone, and then
Yes. Thank you. So we have two microphones, one on this side of the room, one on that side of the room. If you didn't get a comment card and you'd like to write your question anonymously, they're on the back table. Hold up your comment card and one of us will come and get it for you. So we're going to start off with this gentleman right here in the white shirt.
Thank you very much. My name is Jose Gallegos, and I'm a resident of District 5 and also a lifelong member of Thompson's Neighborhood Association. And first of all, I want to congratulate our Councilwoman Garcia, Dr. Garcia. Thank you for hosting this town hall meeting. And of course, thank you to both the chief and our district attorney, Mr. Gonzales. I'm a former probation officer and a parole officer, so I've been involved in the criminal justice system for many, many years, and recognize a little bit of how the criminal justice system works. And I think that certainly I believe very strongly in community policing, and I think that is the only way where we are going to really have an impact on this war on crime. We are currently, I think, inundated by the influx of gun violence and gang violence, and the only way that we can, I think, bring peace to our community and peace to our streets is through doing a collaborative effort and a community effort of working together. I'd like to, however, ask one question to the district attorney, and maybe he can clarify the roles that the investigators play in his office versus the investigators that are charged with investigating a particular crime. And a lot of the times the offenses and repeat offenses occur during that preparation of that case before it goes to court. So can you please explain the role that the investigators in your office play versus the ones with the police department?
I would love to, Mr. Gallegos. Let me tell you that our office is not an initiating investigative agency. Oftentimes people will call our office and say, look, I got my bank account swindled, or somebody broke into my house, I want you to do something. We have to refer them to law enforcement, because law enforcement has to do their job first and file a case with us before we can then determine whether there's enough evidence to prosecute the individual. We have a law, for lack of a better term, we do have a police department within our office. We have 65 investigators, but those investigators are support staff for the prosecutors that are preparing to go to trial. What they do a lot of times is assist in making sure that we can locate witnesses. Remember during COVID, when everybody was shut down, including us, for almost 2 years, we were not able to go to trial. We were not able to go forward and prove those cases. So part of what our investigators had to do was keep in contact with the victims, keep in contact with the witness to make sure that they didn't disappear on us. What they do is they provide information for our prosecutors and our advocates in terms of the documents that are necessary to prove a case. Sometimes they do something as simple as transport witnesses. We've had investigators travel to other states to go bring witnesses to San Antonio to put them on and have them testify. But that's their role. They are limited in what they do. However, we have a division of investigators that engage in very violent, potentially violent and risky activity, and that's our investigators that are assigned to the Family Justice Center, because they have to serve high-risk protective orders, and they never know when they're going to go onto the property of somebody's house and knock on the door, and they're going to meet with somebody with an assault rifle. Not too long ago, our investigators encountered somebody who was a sicario, an assassin from Mexico, and he came to the door with an AR-15. And so It's not normal, it's not, every day, but we do have some investigators that execute those protective orders. But by and large, most of our investigators are there to provide support for our trial teams.
Thank you, Jay. We'll go here with the woman with black and white, and in the red, and then in the left, and in the blue.
Hi there. My name's Rosita Lira, and 2022 wasn't very kind to me. I was a victim of assault by an attempted carjacking on November 4th. The person who attacked me wanted to go to jail, and I feel she had something in her that she needed to go deliver. So she attacked me and yanked me out of my vehicle. And when she yanked me out of my vehicle, the vehicle hit my shoulder and I'm still suffering. A week later, I was accused by a confidential informant of human trafficking. And I was given 6 federal cases. And my bond was $250,000. The cases were dropped. All 6 cases were dropped. I still don't have my vehicle back. The investigator has yet to release my vehicle. Where's my vehicle? We have a lot of things going on in the city, and it starts with domestic violence. The Uvalde shooter, he didn't wake up and say, I'm gonna go shoot a school full of children. It started at home. If we treat domestic violence seriously and nip it in the bud, had we called the crisis team a couple of weeks ago, maybe my cousin Melissa Perez would still be here, and 3 officers wouldn't be charged with murder. The city, Bexar County, the DA's office, SAPD has been very unjust to the community. I lost 2 cousins to police violence. I am a mother of 5, a grandmother of 11, and my granddaughter had to watch me with an ankle monitor on my feet for 6 months, and I paid for that monitor. I have neuropathy and damage to my foot because of that ankle monitor. Y'all didn't have enough proof. I want justice. I want explanation.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm not familiar with the case, ma'am, but if you want, I've got somebody from my office. Can you raise your hand? If you'll give us your name, and if you have a case number, we will look into it. In terms of your vehicle, we do not impound vehicles in the district attorney's office, so we wouldn't have anything to do with releasing a vehicle to you. But we can help look into. I don't know what that means.
We do it together.
Okay, absolutely.
We build bridges. We don't build walls. Let's build bridges. I'm not here to bring you problems. I'm here, let's do a solution. Why TSA can scan somebody and keep things from going on a plane. Why don't we have that technology in Bexar County Jail to keep criminals from bringing in drugs and contraband? That's a solution.
We'll ask you to please be respectful of others' time. Thank you. And we'll follow up.
Asking you to give me the opportunity to look into it. I promise you that we'll get to the bottom of this and see if we can help you, okay?
Let's do it.
Thank you.
Okay, my question is for the district attorney. By the way, my name is Rudy Lopez. I'm in District 5, and I'm the president of the Thompson Neighborhood Association. And Mr. Gonzales, you're familiar with my neighborhood. You grew up there too. We've had at least 3 murders there, several shootings, a stabbing, and that's something really odd for our neighborhood. So in listening to you today and talk about the magistrate judges and how they, supersede your decision on some of those bonds, can you tell us how those magistrate judges, how many we have, and how they're appointed?
Thank you, Rudy. And yes, Rudy has held town halls at the very junior high where I went to school. I spent most of my childhood across the street from Kennedy High School, and so in all transparency, Rudy and I have had discussions in the past. But the magistrate judges work at the behest of the state district judges. They are appointed by them. I know that I was having to make those decisions early in my career. This is 25 years ago, and I've been doing this for 35 years. But I do remember that from time to time, while I was working those weekends, while I was up at night when most people were asleep, I was getting calls from defense lawyers asking me to reduce bonds, asking me to grant PR bonds. And so that's the kind of interactions that they may have. But they are responsible, to answer your question, to the district judges that all vote together. There is a presiding district judge that provides supervision and leadership to that group. But that's how the magistrate judges end up working and making those decisions. And again, they don't work for me, I don't work for them. Even when we ask for input, they don't necessarily have to accept our recommendations. And so that's the system that we currently have. By the way, it's not unique to Bexar County. That's the way it works in Dallas. That's the way it works in Houston. That's the way it works in any area that has an administration system. They are independent of the DA's office. It's supposed to be that way because we're litigants, we're advocates for victims, and so we have to have that separation.
And the only reason I'm asking this is there's got to be accountability on somebody's part, right? And we're the people. They need to be accountable to us as the people. And if they're not working with you and they're not working for us, then there's got to be some accountability on somebody's behalf.
I absolutely agree, Rudy, and I think one of the first steps is maybe inviting the judges to this kind of forum and expressing to them your frustrations, expressing to them that they ought to be accountable, even though they've been appointed by the district judges. The district judges, guess who their bosses are? Every one of you all, because you all elect the district judges, just like you all elect me. I am accountable to you. That's why I'm here, because in my mind, accountability means answerability. I'm here to answer the questions that you have. And I say all day long, I've said it before, I'll take the hit for something that's my fault. But I want to correct the narrative when something happens that is not our fault. But yes, I absolutely agree with you. We had a discussion Friday in front of the editorial board where we talked about that maybe there ought to be some dialogue with the district judges and the magistrates that they appoint.
Thank you, DA. Thank you, Rudy, for your question. And again, we're taking all of your comments today, and the mayor and the judge have staff here that are also taking down notes and taking down all of your questions and your comments. So thank you for re-emphasizing this. While that word goes around and gives the next person the microphone, oh, we have it already. I'll remind you all that we're going to start collecting the comment cards. So staff is going to come around and start collecting the comment cards, and what I'll do is I'll take one from the audience and then one from the comment card to be fair. Go ahead.
My name is Antonio Garcia. I live over here off of Moorback Road inside 410. I got grandsons, and my sons, of course, they all live outside of 1604. I tell them not to come into my neighborhood after dark for fear of what's going on. Chief, this is not directed at you, but directed as to, we see more and more violence going on, and as young as 13 years old, sitting in cars, shooting people, carrying guns. And you mentioned that the city, I believe, wanted like 350 police officers are short, but only 105 can be hired. Hypothetically, you have what, about 20 that retire every year? So in reality, you're going to wind up with about 80 officers. Why can't we hire 120 to make up for those 20 that are going to retire? Is it something that you can handle, our community can handle, the city of San Antonio brings up to our councilman?
We will, the 100 positions are, we're not talking about backfilling for attrition, we're talking about backfilling for attrition and 105 brand new positions. So on top of anyone who might retire or separate from the department for one reason or another, they're in addition to the 105 that will be looking to hire this next fiscal year.
It'll be 105 plus
whatever, yes, plus whatever separates, whomever, however many separates from the department, in addition to that 105.
Thank you. I'll read one of the questions from the audience, and this is for DA Gonzales.
what the magistrate's office uses to determine the risk is a database called, actually there's two of them. There's a TCIC, which has a state criminal history, and the NCIC. TCIC stands for Texas Criminal Information Computer, and then of course National Criminal Information Computer. And that information is provided to the magistrate judges to give them some idea of the criminal history. Now, it's not just convictions, but their arrest history as well. So the judges can use that in determining where to set a bond. But let me just remind you that the law says that bonds are to be set to ensure the presence of that prisoner in court. They are not to be oppressive. And so if they are, that can negate a bond. And I'll tell you that one of the things that we determine or figure out, like I said, in those texts that I have with my chief in the middle of the night, if we ask for a bond that is outrageous, let's say we ask it for a $500,000 bond, we know the judge is not going to set it, and he or she would just set it where they think it's appropriate. So we ask for something more reasonable. Let's say again, a murder case, $250,000, $300,000. But that's what they use to determine the risk. Is simply the information that is given to them, and it's given to them by the clerk of the court where they're working. We have, by the way, we've improved the system, and we now have bond hearings where we have a representative from my office. We will have a prosecutor appear at the bond hearing and make a recommendation. The accused will have a member of the public defender's office requesting a bond. And oftentimes what they do is they split the baby, as they say, and they'll set a bond somewhere in the middle. But I will tell you, in all fairness to the magistrate judges, when it's a serious crime, and when we inform them of the serious nature of the offense, more often than not, they will follow our recommendations.
Thank you, TA. We'll go to another question from the audience, and we have one.
Thank you. Yes, my name is Armando Rodriguez. My son was murdered in 2020. It was a COVID case, like DA Gonzales said right now. It was a COVID case. And Joe let my killer go. Joe let my killer go. I come to these events, I come to wherever you speak, because I want you to remember my face and you'll remember the case. His famous words with the lady up front right now was, I don't know your case, but I'll look into it. You've been looking into mine for 3 years. Your famous words is, I promise to look into it. 3 years later, I'm still waiting for that call from you. You paint a pretty picture. You paint a pretty picture at the town hall meetings, at Commissioner's Court, where I've been. You paint a pretty picture, and you say the right words. But as I said, I'm here. I know you know me. I know you remember the face. And just with that, you're going to remember Robert Llewellyn's case. I'm here, and one more thing. He mentioned that this was against the news media, the bickering with him and SAPD, and the investigators not doing their job. So you're telling me my case was in Helotes. So you're telling me that SAPD investigators are not doing their job. Helotes PD investigators are not doing their job. Texas Rangers are not doing their job. It's funny how everybody's not doing their job, but you are. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
First, let me say I'm sorry that you went through that. I'm sorry that you lost your son. But the reality still remains, sir, is that we have to be able to prove every case beyond a reasonable doubt. And the fact that we haven't been able to do that, the fact that we've had to dismiss the case tells me that we were not able to do that. We can't go to trial and ask the jury to convict someone based on the fact that you lost your son. We have to be able to identify a defendant. We have to be able to prove that that suspect, that person that we've indicted committed the murder. That means we have to have either fingerprints, some DNA, an eyewitness, a confession. Well, I mean, that's...
Thank you, DA. Thank you, out of respect, I'll move on. Thank you. You stated, DA, that cases must be proven beyond reasonable doubt. There has been news stories about turnover in the DA's office. Is there an increase in rejected cases? And at what level are the decisions to reject cases made? And how many years of prosecutorial experience does the average DA have?
Well, it depends. First, let me say that we did experience a turnover around the holidays, which is typical for any administration. At the end of 4 years, people that have vested after 8 years decide to leave the office for private practice because that's more lucrative than being a prosecutor. As I mentioned before, anybody who's a prosecutor in the DA's office, they're not doing it to get rich. They're doing it because they believe in what they're doing. They believe in fighting for the victims of crime. But folks, when we have strong evidence, when we have the ability to prosecute, we have had tremendous success. Just recently, we have had a 78% success rate on murder convictions. That's the biggest it's ever been for 12 years. We've tried over 150 cases this year. We have successfully prosecuted and obtained convictions of 1,700 people so far this year. So we are doing the job when we have the evidence that allows us to prosecute. But we have to have the evidence. That's the reality. That's what we have to deal with every day. And unfortunately, we have to make those tough decisions about whether or not to reject the case or to dismiss the case when we don't have the evidence and we can't go forward. That's the reality that not only the DA's office in this county deals with, but every county that has to make those tough decisions.
Thank you, David. We'll go over to a question. Cindy, I think you have to go.
Good evening, District Attorney. Good to see you again. My name is Dean DeSoto. I'm with CATS, the Aggressive Driving Program. We put that program in place in 1999 under the late Mayor Howard Peak, who's been operating since. We've since set up coalitions in a place called Dallas. District Attorney Crusoe and I had a 3-hour lunch, had a good chat, and talked about programs up there. We're also working in Houston on the Aggressive Driving Program. We're also in collaboration with the University of Texas San Antonio Department of Engineering and also Computer Science Engineering. They've determined that 32% of all the aggressive driving cases in Texas are gun-related. My question, though, is in San Antonio, we have a rate of 10 aggressive driving incidents for every 1,000 drivers. In Dallas and Houston, we have 4 incidents in every 1,000 drivers. Now, the interesting thing is Houston has more fatalities than anybody in the state. Dallas number 2 and number 3. But the very incident of 10 in 1,000 means things are going. I know we talked about 32% gun problem. We also have spear problems now. You all caught that in national news already, I'm sure. So that's one issue that we're working on. And we strongly encourage you to continue working on that. And I thank Chief for everything you've done, sir. Second question. I just got through talking to Mothers Against Drunk Drivers this afternoon about one of my clients whose father was run over by a drunk driver in his front yard, water in his yard, on July 11th. The man who's charged with intoxication, assault, and failure to render aid, who's now out on bond. I'm not sure what's going to happen. I'll make a formal inquiry to your officer regarding what's the disposition of this offender, because at this point he's out on bond. The man is a senior citizen. He's injured. The man, of course, with the driving car did not have any insurance. He was charged. He was incarcerated for detox, and now he's out. But I'm hoping that you do have a scram on this individual. And lastly, I might say that I think one of the key points we need to remember is whatever goes on in the roads, ways of Texas, and I note all these recent shootings were on roadways, freeways, or highways, is also going on in our communities. So I encourage all of you to continue working on this issue because this issue is critical to all of us, and the factors do not look good. Thank you.
Thank you. We will, I've lost the track on the microphone. Oh, there we go. Sorry, right here.
Good evening. My name is Sergeant Christopher Hernandez. I'm a retired police sergeant, patrol, for over 20 years. I'm also versed and certified in mental health, firearms, and tactics. I'm also certified as a crime scene investigator. What I'm about to speak to you about hits close to home, our neighborhood, our community, but mostly our family. I'm here to speak to you, District Attorney, about a homicide that occurred with one of my family members. It occurred on January 31st, 2022. And with that being said, this person was caught, incarcerated, held in the Bexar County Jail, and released. He was released, my understanding, by the DA's office for the lack of evidence. He was only held for 90 days because I believe it was pending laboratory results from the ME's office. Granted. So here we are, fast forwarding. We have those results, and I believe they're positive. And we've been in constant contact with your office, Mr. DA. And not one time throughout that year and a half have we ever received one phone call from your office stating, this is where we're at, I'm sorry for your loss, this is where the case is, or even if there is a case in our office in reference to your niece's homicide. We're shocked. I'm shocked. I said, our DA's office is not like that. They have all their ducks in a row. They're a professional agency, and they would never forget that. You mentioned earlier you're an advocate for domestic violence. I don't see that. Corruption. I don't see that, Mr. DA. Mr. Gonzales, one phone call. Just one phone call. The notes are there. Ask your secretary. Ask her. But we never got one return. As a matter of fact, what we did get was, that case isn't in this office. We don't know what you're talking about. Well, can you put us in contact with Mr. Gonzales? He's too busy. I said, well, here's my number. Can you have him return my call? Or one of his ADAs, or his chief deputies, or even one of his PIOs. Somebody to answer at least one of our questions. My niece is not a number. She has a name. And her face is right here. Her face is right here. She was bludgeoned to death. Her husband. We know who the perpetrator is. 2 people went to sleep in that bedroom that night. Arguments, fighting, physical and verbal, occurred all night because the children witnessed it. They witnessed it. And by the end of the night in the morning, only one person came out of that bedroom door alive, and it was the suspect. That morning, one of the little girls, her daughter, the middle one, attempted to wake up her mother, soaked in blood, with her skull caved in, attempting to wake up her mother. And she could not for obvious reasons. She was barely breathing, so she decided to call 911 for help. And you can refer to the 911 tape. So, Mr. Gonzales, I'm asking you, as an advocate for domestic violence, why didn't you return our calls? And most importantly, why didn't you accept the case from homicide? They've attempted to meet with you several times after the refiling, as recent as August 28th, I believe. I've been in contact with the homicide investigator, and all he could tell me was the district attorney's office wouldn't see me. Chief McManus, I've been speaking with the homicide investigator in charge of this case. He can't tell me anything. He cannot tell me anything. I call him for the family every chance I get, because the family asks me, because I'm the police officer of the family. I'm supposed to have the answers. And I don't. Because you, Mr. DA, Chief McManus, your homicide investigator is doing the best he can, but he can't do his job if you're not doing yours. So before you answer or respond, I would like you to explain to the Guerra family, the victim's family, why or what you're going to do to open your lines of communication to us so that this doesn't happen to us any longer. We begin a new beginning now, incarcerate this animal that's roaming around free and continues to be a threat to those little girls, those little girls are so afraid of their father that they have to have an armed escort going to and from school. Heaven forbid that he attempts to harm those children, because the end result isn't going to be good. And to prevent a tragedy of him or his cohorts doing something to those children at the elementary schools that they attend, you're looking for something bad to occur. And I'm here to speak to prevent that. I do not want to see my sisters and brothers in blue. I do not want them to get hurt. And if somebody like this, of that magnitude, committing the crime of murder, you know he's an offender. You know he's going to reoffend again. Let's stop him now. Please.
We need to be more proactive. What can we do to help get more money from more police officers? Because we seem to be being reactive and not proactive.
Well, we're specifically talking about this one case.
Okay, well, sir, this may sound facetious, but let me ask you, do you believe in justice?
I'm sorry?
Do you believe in justice?
Absolutely. That's why I swore to uphold the law.
Do you believe in fairness?
I do, to protect and serve.
I lead an office of 250 prosecutors, sir. To be fair to me, this is the first I've ever heard.
And I anticipated you.
You talk, please.
Okay, go right ahead.
Okay, this is the first, sir, that I've heard this. All I'm asking is for you to be fair to me and give me an opportunity to find out what happened here. You mentioned a detective, that you had the detective's name that you say has been trying to get a hold of us?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay, I would like that detective's name, so that we can get to the bottom of it. Do you have the name of one of my prosecutors that told you that we had to dismiss this case because we couldn't prove it?
That prosecutor is no longer with your office.
Okay. Well, that's fine. That doesn't make a difference. There's no statute of limitations on murder, but I'll tell you what is the problem. Is when someone is arrested for murder and they're taken to jail, we have 90 days to prepare that case for indictment and present it to a grand jury. And if we don't have the ability to prove that case within the 90 days, then we have to make the decision to dismiss it for further investigation, or that person walks out with a PR bond. So we're having to do that when we don't have sufficient evidence. And I'm not saying that that's what happened here, but give me an opportunity to figure out what happened. And if we now have the medical evidence that we needed from the MD's office, then we have the ability to re-indict that case because we still have the ability to do that. But I need to figure out what happened. And if somebody told you from my office that sorry, but I'm too busy to meet with you, that's wrong, because I meet with victims of crime all the time. I've met with people since the very beginning, and I'm certainly willing to meet with you, but you've got to be fair to me. You've got to give me a chance to figure out what happened here.
I am fair to you, and that's why I'm not asking for your resignation. I am being fair to you.
Hello, my name is Pilar Acobio, and I just recently moved into District 4. Now, I couldn't believe my eyes and my ears when I turned on the TV and we saw the shooting that first occurred, started from District 5, and it ended up in District 4. I said, oh, that's, it's not going to happen again. I said, not here in San Antonio. So my questions are directed to the DA Gonzales and Chief McManus. Like, now I'm hearing all about your prosecutors. And sir, let me just correct you, please, when you're on TV, do not say when somebody's been hurt and there's been shootings, especially with our police officers, please do not say, well, we didn't have enough information. We didn't have enough evidence. We probably could figure that out. But at that instance, they're still trying to get that man out of wherever he was hiding. And you just said, I don't know anything about this. That to me hit me hard in my heart because, you know, we need to just be careful with our words, especially when there's still danger out there. So that's one thing I do not want to hear from your mouth again. We do not have enough evidence. And that's where your prosecutors come in. That's where your prosecutors come in. Where is that communication that once you know, they tell you, we don't have enough evidence. And we don't have, and that's just what I heard on TV. We don't have the witness. What are the procedures for you to try to get that evidence, or what steps do the prosecutors take? And at the end, why not just leave it to the jury? You keep saying there's not enough evidence. Why don't you try it and let the jury or the judge decide? You know, why do you decide that? I don't understand. And the communication with Chief McManus on this issue with the felons that are out there, those 2 weeks, I'm saying, my God, how often have these felons been out there? When do the police officers go and chase them or go follow them and then they get caught? And then we had that shooting on Fair and I-10 East. That was terrible. They weren't just shooting at the police officers, they were shooting at people. I mean, that man was trying to get into a car. So the communication is, there's no right time to arrest anybody, I know that much. But that day on the one on 37, on 10 and Fair, I mean, everybody's trying to get home. It was just blocked. I mean, the traffic, it wasn't moving. So we need to try to get that communication between you two to not have these things going on. And Chief McManus, I know that the police got hurt and whichever way they do it, but the first instance, the first shooting, there were like 100 cop cars at that apartment. And I understand they're there for their fellow people, but that obstructed a lot of people that were trying to be there. How can they even get there to help the people? So that also has to be looked into. So I think that's my thing right now, is because of those 2 weeks of the shooting, I have not heard anything that has consoled me to say that it's going to get better. It has to get better because people are getting hurt and your policemen are getting hurt and you are being blamed with the prosecutors. So we need to find a better solution. And that was just a statement. Thank you.
Okay, I got one comment. This is my wife. 2 years ago, we had a murder in the family. We had a criminal come to our neighborhood, murder one of our in-laws, okay? We didn't deal with the DA. SAPD stood up. Their investigators came over like that. They looked at it, they looked at the case, SAPD did their job, and the incident was covered, and the city of San Antonio, the city councilwoman, where we lived at the time, she came to our house, she visited with us, she gave us her condolences, the whole works. The city threw everything behind us to help us through the case. I'm sorry for the gentleman who lost his family, I'm sorry for the officer here that lost their family. We may be the odd case, the one case that did work out, but we're thankful we didn't have to go to the DA and do anything. Everything that was done through the San Antonio Police Department, and we have your back.
Thank you, Mr. Rubio. We have a comment card saying, thanks to the San Antonio Police Department and the DA for all you do. It is a tough job every day, and you are appreciated. So thank you very much. We also have a comment card, and it's asking, it's directed at Chief. Do you have officers accordingly to the district by crime, etc.?
the heart of this question is, do you have officers accordingly to the district, crime, et cetera, and if someone is arrested with various crimes, So I think the question is asking, are officers assigned to where the majority of the crime is? So the way we break this down is, it's by call volume, by workload. So all of the substations and all the patrol areas within the substations officers are assigned to them based on the call load. So we try to make it pretty much an even spread across the city as far as the workload goes, and then where the more workload is, though, more officers go. And when there's a spike in crime in a particular area, then we'll put a specialized unit in there. It might be a covert unit, it might be a direct patrol by safety, but we'll put the resources where the issues are. When a complaint comes in, it might come into my office, it might come from some other office, then we'll take that complaint. Your Frank takes a lot of those complaints. We take those complaints and we forward them to the unit that's most appropriate to handle them. And then once that unit does their investigation, they'll get back to my office or whatever office that complaint came into, and then we'll follow up and call back the individual who made that complaint with what happened, so that we provide a follow-up and there's nobody left hanging, because that's what Frank makes us like that.
And Chief, while you're up there, people speeding, coming and leaving at the neighborhood off of the 410 access road, is there any more police presence or speed bumps that could help?
So I don't know which access road we're talking about here, but if whoever put this question in, if you would talk to Joe Frank and give us a location, we'll pass this along to the traffic unit, and then the traffic unit will go down there and do some enforcement.
And there's a question over here, everyone has the microphone.
My name is Charles Satterwhite. I'm the founder of San Antonio Rising Stars nonprofit. I'm in District 2 area. Well, I work the whole city of San Antonio, but mainly in District 2. I created a program called Mothers Out of Burying Their Kids. Did not realize that my son would be murdered. And so my son was murdered last year, and the case is coming before you. And as I'm sitting here listening to you, you said that you have to be able to prove this without a reasonable doubt, right? That's what you just said. And then I talked to somebody about staffing. Y'all have the staffing where y'all meet up and y'all decide what cases that y'all could prove without a reasonable doubt. So my question is, so if you feel like you can't win the case in court, do you try? Or what is the procedures of that? Because as I'm listening to what you're saying, it's like you gotta have done everything from A to Z. That's what it sounds like to me. Because every time everybody that said something to you, you said, I gotta be able to prove it, And so what I'm saying is, I thought that was for the jury. I thought that was for the courts to decide. And so that's what I'm trying to get an understanding, because our case is coming towards you pretty soon, or it might be already in your lap. So now I'm really confused. So I really want to know the answer to that question.
So it's a very valid question, and the answer is we don't only go to trial of cases where we believe that we have 100% proof that the defendant committed the act, but we have to have a reasonable basis to believe that we can put that case in the jury's hands. For example, let's talk about a murder where all you have is a witness, one witness. The law says that we're entitled to go to trial based on the testimony of that one witness. So we make the decision to go to trial, and we put on that witness. The jury decides whether that witness is credible or not. If they believe the witness, we win. If they don't believe the witness, we may lose. But at least we have a witness that can testify that person saw the defendant pull the trigger and shoot the person or stab the person. If we have ballistics, if we have fingerprints, if we have a confession, then we can go forward. We've got to have some evidence in order for us to go forward. If we have nothing, a lot of times what we have is we may have that one witness, but that witness disappears on us. And without that person's testimony, then we don't have the ability to go forward. And that's what may happen in the case that we end up dismissing. We may have had that witness early on, but then the witness disappears on us or decides they don't want to cooperate. So we have to have, again, at least some chance of winning. We don't have to have 100% belief that we're going to win, but we just have to have, some indication. And there are times when my prosecutors will come to me and they'll identify what the issue is, and I tell them, you know what, go to trial. You've got to try this case. That happens, for example, on intoxication manslaughter, where there's a causation issue, where the reason that the defendant committed the intoxication manslaughter because the victim may have been crossing the street in the middle of the night and there was no lighting and the person had dark clothes, so there's an issue of causation. And I say, you know what, go to trial and let's hope that we can prevail and we can get a conviction. So that's an example of when we have to make the decision, but we've got to have something to go forward and hopefully we have something on your son's case that we can move forward and we can bring justice to his memories.
Thank you, DA. Chief McManus wants to add something on this.
There's two, actually I'm going to make three. There's three people in the audience that I want to recognize that I didn't do before. Charles, you weren't in here when I was recognizing everybody. Stand up, Charles. So Charles Satellite is a great partner with SAPD. He is the founder of San Antonio Rising Stars, which is an organization that mentors young folks in this city. I think most recently you went to New York, Charles, to New York with a group. Takes these young folks to Spurs games and all kinds of activities to keep them off the street. He does a great job, and I'm proud to say that he's a great partner with SAPD. Thank you, Charles. Ladies before gentlemen, we have Beverly Watts. Who will stand up, Beverly? Beverly is a key component of the healthcare organization. She is also a great partner with SAPD. We work very closely with her. And then Ron, stand up. We got Ron Brown. Ron is a key member of our community engagement team. And he actually works right down the hallway from me, and he is on the street like all the time, dealing with neighborhood issues and community groups throughout the city. Ron's a key part of our cadet immersion program that we started some time ago, and I just want to recognize them because they are key players with SAPD.
I'm Juan Hernandez, I'm in District 7, but I've been around politics here in San Antonio and Bexar County. I was a victim of crime. I had my car broken into, and the Cadillac converter was stolen, which apparently is an item right now. But I have to say that I've seen a change in some of the police officers. They're easier to talk to. A few years back, it might be a little bit different. But even with the problem I may have encountered years ago, when police officers are getting shot, then that's dangerous for the rest of us. That's my attitude. And I think my daughters are all grown, but I think we've lost a lot in family. You know, we try to have the teachers raise our kids. We're asking the police department to raise our kids. We have to look at the community. It used to be the community raised the kids, the neighborhood raised the kids. It doesn't happen anymore. And as to Mr. Gonzales, you got a lot of people unhappy with you. And I can only say I wish you luck in getting them happy. But they're hurt, they're hurting, they're still hurting. And a lot of people who aren't saying anything, but they're hurting as well. And all I can say is good luck to both of y'all. And Chief, keep the good work up. And to you guys, the police department, I'm hoping that no more people get shot at. Being a person that worked ER, I hate to see wounds. And the police department doesn't deserve to get shot at. Nobody deserves to get shot at. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jade Pacheco. I'm a community builder with Act for SA. I'm a lifelong D4 resident. Me and my family have experienced crime, especially property crime. I believe that we're a target because my mother has the wheelchair lift on the back of her car and it's been repeatedly damaged. There was an active shooter in our neighborhood a couple years ago, maybe out of whatever. It took almost an hour for y'all to come out. And I want to echo what he's saying, that I really do believe it is community that's going to solve the problem. And where we really need to focus our priorities is preventing people from committing crime in the first place. And I think we do that by prioritizing community organizations and training programs, anger management, job training, housing assistance. And my question is for you. In the city budget, we have $1.1 million slotted for a gym for police officers. We have a crisis, an opioid crisis, a mental health crisis. We have a crisis of violent crime. This is not the time to prioritize gyms. And I'm asking, and I'm happy that we have the SA core teams. We should be putting double of what we already are allotting for that. And I'm asking you to prioritize community services. I just went to the to the public hearing at the city council chambers, and there were multiple community organizations there that were being defunded, or not defunded, excuse me, their budget has been slashed. Like, for example, Big Brothers Big Sisters. That's where we're gonna prevent crime. So I'm asking you to prioritize community organization. Thank you.
But let me clarify something. We are not spending $1 million for a gym for police officers. Right now, our current facility is way too small and will not accommodate the additional cadets that we're bringing in to try and add 105, actually 360 police officers over the year. So we have to expand our training facility, and that's what this is. It's expansion of part of the training facility to accommodate for extra cadets that will be coming through there. It's not simply a gym for police.
Thank you. And I'm glad that you brought up the Big Brothers Big Sisters. That was one of the things that we'll continue advocating for. I was a big, so I see how the program works. But we will continue to prioritize the preventive. And I think that today, the conversation, and I thank the DA and I thank the chief for both wanting to be here, because this shows that they want to work together. They want to listen to your concerns, and it's time to move forward. And there's been enough excuses, there's been enough bigger points, and it's time to all work together and figure out where the pieces of the system are working. So thank you for your feedback. Thank you.
My name is Carlos Casanova. I'm District 5. Chief, I have a question for you and one for Gonzales. Las Palmas area, is there any way, like Las Palmas and then over here by Salsamola, Southwest Military Drive, I think they should be more foot patrol for like from 10 to 2, because the crime there is very bad. Like I have friends that live on that two sides of towns, and they say they're walking to either H-E-B or to the corner store, and he said that an SUV just stopped and they put a gun at him. They told him, give your wallet, you know, and that's, you know, just going to the corner store, that should not be happening, you know. Is there anything that you could do about that?
Yeah, Joe Frank's working his way over to you, and if you could give him your phone number, and then tomorrow we'll get the exact area, the boundaries of the areas you're talking about, run the crime numbers, and take a look and see what they look like, and then we'll go from there. We'll call you back and let you know what we can do. We'll talk to you about the crime numbers in that area.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah. Joe, question. These officers might not like the question I'm going to ask you.
when are you going to prosecute these officers that are off duty that commit domestic violence with their wives and girlfriends? And the two deputies from the sheriff's department that they shot in the air, and SAPD responded, and they got, I guess, into pushing. He violated the rights of the officer. I mean, I want to know when are you going to put some of these cops in jail? When are you going to prosecute them? I mean, everybody does. I mean, to me, if I do something, you're going to send me to jail. You know what I mean? But you don't send these officers to jail. You know? And Mrs. Garcia, you need to tell Ron to come on TV and say, Mr. Gonzales, you need to resign. And the whole city council, because he's not doing his job.
Part of, I think, the frustration with law enforcement is when we created the Civil Rights Division, because I said from the very beginning, no one is above the law. We have prosecuted members of law enforcement. We have a civil rights unit that currently, where we have an officer indicted for murder. We have prosecuted other officers. We have a public integrity unit where we have prosecuted other members of law enforcement. Not only law enforcement. Sir, you want me to answer that? So what I said is we are prosecuting members of law enforcement when they commit crimes, because I said from the very beginning that no one is above the law. We prosecuted a constable, we prosecuted a city councilman, we're continuing to prosecute anybody that commits crimes, and the reality is that we have to have the evidence, sir. So we are doing that.
I mean, Chief McManus, he fires these officers because they break the law, but you don't do anything about it.
Well, I think I just explained to you, but
Thank you
for you.
So we have 7 more minutes, and we have a lot of questions, but go ahead.
Mine is more of a statement than it is a question. My name's Robert Abraham, and I've been I guess a professional volunteer for quite a few years now with the SAPD. I'm a COP, a VIP, and a PST, and the chief and I have joked before. He says, just don't be an SOB when you're out there. And anyways, the COP is Citizens on Patrol, and it's a way that you can get involved in your community. There's so many people here tonight. Get involved in your community. You are the eyes and the ears of the police department. They can't be everywhere with all the 5,000 miles of roads that they have in the city. So you got to get out there. You got to help them out. So please do that. Just go to sa.gov/COP, and you can get trained. And nobody's ever been hurt being a COP. You observe and report. You don't get involved in an active situation. So thank you.
Thank you. And I saw John Garcia that having his hand in the back. I'll give the opportunity to recognize him, and I'll also let you all know that this gentleman is up at all hours of the night and advocating for our neighborhood, and he is still the #1 311 app user in the city. So he does a great job of advocating for all of us. So we're lucky to have you in our neighborhood, specifically, John. But please support you.
Well, thank you for outing me to the community. Should have worn a mask. John Bersiaga, I'm with the Heritage Neighborhood Association here in District 4. I just wanted to dispel a myth real quick that the DA said earlier. Basically, it's the gun show loophole. I've been going to gun shows from Florida to California for the last 40 years, and every time I've ever purchased a handgun or a rifle, I have to fill out a 4473 ATF form for the background check. Now, that's not to say that in the parking lot outside, a private sale can occur, but I don't recall ever seeing a Sicario or an MS-13 gang member, doing a gun deal out in the parking lot. That just doesn't happen. Law-abiding citizens go to gun shows,
I don't see a bunch of criminals going in there purchasing handguns, because they're not going to purchase a handgun legally. They're going to go in some back alley somewhere or at some drug deal and purchase the gun there. So let's just get that out in the open, because there's a lot of confusion and a lot of ignorance about the way gun shows actually work. That's not true. So there's that. And then I have a question for you, DA, because I remember when you first took office, you stated that your team wasn't going to prosecute low-level nonviolent crimes. I remember that specifically. And I'm looking here. I'm going to read something real quick. Back in July of 22, some police reform advocates were celebrating 3 years of cite and release. Okay, so now let me read this real quick. I'll be brief. It says, cite and release programs have been celebrated by justice reform advocates who see it as a way to reduce the impacts of over-policing, reduce jail overcrowding, and direct people towards diversion programs. Arrests cost the county more in booking, in jail time, and in public defenders. It costs people time in jail that could result in the loss of a job or worse. Reducing them saves money. Based on numbers from the sheriff's office, the DA estimated it saved taxpayers more than $4 million just in booking costs alone. It also frees up law enforcement from hours-long booking processes of paperwork. And so my question to you is, because, hold on, 1 second here, I can't find it. Yeah, so you're trying to reduce over-policing in underserved communities and all that, but how do you square that with what the chief mentioned earlier about wanting 100 additional police officers returned to the communities so they can police more? So how do you square over-policing with the chief's request of 100 more officers to communities? Thank you.
Well, the benefit to cite and release is not the benefit to cite and release is not over-policing. The benefit is to allow them to get back on patrol instead of spending the majority of their shift processing someone for a minor amount of marijuana who's going to end up getting deferred adjudication anyway for the courts. But let's cut to the chase here. If you all don't like cite and release, you can get rid of it today. Cite and release is a law enforcement tool that SAPD uses because it benefits them and they continue to use it. We can stop. Well, it's not our fault. It's a good thing. It's the good thing. I'm glad SAPD uses cite and release because it benefits the county. But then, let's call a spade a spade. The only reason that we even get people into the reentry center is because we get referrals from law enforcement so that they can get back and do their job. In patrolling car burglaries and murders and sexual assaults. So I applaud Chief McManus for using it, and I hope he does. But you guys got to call it what it is. It's a law enforcement tool. And I'm glad that we use it. I hope that we continue to use it. But I'm not the one that controls it. I can't order him. He doesn't work for me. I don't work for him. We work together, and I think that's been one of the biggest successes.
Thank you, DA. And what we have, it's 7:59. We've got to get the chief out of here, but chief has committed to have officers stay behind to ask all the questions. There's about 20 questions in the crowd, so if I pick someone out, I will leave the other 19 out. I'm so sorry. But we have to close this, and I wanted to give the opportunity for closing comments for each one of you. So I'll start with Chief McManus.
Thank you all for being here tonight. I know that there's some frustration out here about some of your individual cases. If we have the information that Joe Frank got your information, and we'll follow back up with you tomorrow. Glad you're all here. And we appreciate your questions, we appreciate your concerns, we appreciate your frustration, and we understand it. But thank you for being here, and anything you can do to support SAPD, we appreciate it. Thank you.
And I will allow the DA close the comments.
I'm here because the citizens of Bexar County not only elected but re-elected me. But I'm here to do a job. I'm here to do a job, and I showed up to explain discussion, we can have an adult discussion. But I was respectful to you. Show me the same kind of respect. All I'm asking is, if you're dissatisfied with the way my office has handled that case, the general number is not working for you, Sergeant. So I'm going to give you and everyone here the number to my executive assistant that says, let me finish.